Austin, Texas, live musical capital of the world, a city that somehow brands itself as laid back while being one of the fastest growing metros in the United States. But today, we're not here for barbecue rankings or which tech CEO just moved here. We're here to ask a more interesting question. How did Austin become Austin? And more importantly, is its urban form helping or hurting the very culture that made it famous? Welcome to Understanding Urbanism. Let's talk about Austin. Austin grew up fast. Austin didn't just evolve into a big city, it jumped levels. For most of the 20th century, it was a government town, a college town, and a music town. Then tech arrived, then remote work, then suddenly Austin was absorbing hundreds of thousands of new residents in just a decade. That kind of growth exposes every planning decision, especially when you thought you'd stay small. Street layouts, zoning, transit, housing supply. Urbanistically, Austin had a problem. It was built like a small Texas city and then forced to function like a large metro almost overnight, and the infrastructure did not get the memo. The single-family city. For decades, most of Austin was locked into low-density zoning, especially central neighborhoods close to jobs, parks, transit, and local amenities. Austin's development pattern follows the familiar Sunbelt formula. Large swaths of single-family zoning, that means large areas where only one home is allowed on a lot, commercial activity pushed onto arterial roads, and apartments clustered like islands, disconnected from daily life. Supply couldn't respond, and prices skyrocketed. This really isn't about aesthetics, it's math. When growth is forced outward instead of upward or inward, you get sprawl, longer commutes, and higher housing costs. Austin didn't stop growing. It just made growth harder, pricier, and more exclusive. Code next, and the fear of change. The city that prided itself on creativity and counterculture became increasingly inaccessible to the people who defined it. Musicians, service workers, artists, and yes, planners who can't afford to live near their jobs. Austin tried to fix this. Code Next was supposed to modernize zoning citywide, allowing more housing types and flexibility. Instead, it became a masterclass in how hard planning reform really is. Neighborhood opposition, political gridlock, and lawsuits ensured that the city stayed frozen in time, and growth kept charging forward anyways. The result? A city that knows it needs more housing, but struggles to agree on where and how to build it. Austin didn't reject density, it just happened to reject density nearby. A car-first city. If you've driven in Austin, you already know where this is going. Austin is still a car city. Interstate 35 slices straight through downtown like an urban scar, dividing East and West Austin both physically and economically. Most daily trips require driving. Transit exists, but it's limited. Buses stuck in traffic, and a commuter rail line that mostly serves suburban peak hours. Which is fine unless you're trying to build a city and not a park and ride system. The problem isn't that Austin has cars, it's that it designed everything around them. Building rail in a low-density city is harder, slower, and more expensive than doing it early, something Austin is now learning in real time. The I-35 Cap and Stitch project in Austin, Texas is a significant effort to create parks and pedestrian bridges over parts of the lowered I-35 freeway. This initiative aims to reconnect East and West Austin, enhance green spaces, and improve mobility. Key areas are planned from Cesar Chavez to 12th Street and near Airport Boulevard. The city has made substantial funding commitments for support structures even after previous losses in federal grants, with a goal for phased completion into the 2030s. And when population grows and road space doesn't, congestion isn't a mystery, it's a design outcome. Project Connect and transit reality. Project Connect is Austin finally admitting something important. The car-first approach just isn't working anymore. In 2020, voters approved a massive transit plan built around light rail and better buses. That's a big shift for a city that spent decades widening roads and just hoping the traffic would just sort itself out. And in planning terms, this is a classic idea of transit-oriented development, or TOD. Put good transit in, let people live and work nearby, and suddenly driving isn't the only option. But here's the catch. Transit doesn't just magically create riders, people do. And in Austin, a lot of land around future stations still only allows single-family homes. That means fewer people within walking distance, which makes transit slower to succeed and harder to defend politically. This is a lesson cities learn over and over again. Transit works best when land use and transportation move together. Project Connect can absolutely work, but only if neighborhoods near stations grow up. not just out. Density isn't the enemy. In Austin, density gets treated like a four-letter word, and not a good one. Downtown and South Congress have grown vertically. That means longer commutes, higher housing costs, more sprawl, more traffic, and yes, more parking lots than anyone asked for. Urban density doesn't have to mean skyscrapers everywhere. It means duplexes, fourplexes, courtyard apartments, missing middle housing, the stuff that makes cities livable without turning them into Manhattan. The kind of housing that made older neighborhoods walkable, affordable, and lively. Austin is slowly allowing more ADUs and small-scale infill, but at a pace far slower than demand. Austin isn't pretending growth won't happen. It's just wrestling with how it happens and who it serves. The next decade will define whether Austin becomes a walkable, transit-inclusive city or a sprawled-out tech hub with really good tacos and really bad traffic. East Austin and the cost of cool. Density isn't just a number issue, it's an equity issue. When housing is restricted in some areas, growth doesn't just disappear, it just gets moved into others. And in Austin, that pressure landed hardest east of I-35. East Austin is where Austin's growth story gets complicated. Really complicated. For decades, this area was shaped by redlining, segregation, and infrastructure decisions, especially I-35. That physically divided communities and limited access to opportunity. Now, that same highway is being rebuilt, reopening long-standing questions about who benefits from major infrastructure investment. This is why equity planning matters. To put it simply, equity planning is designing cities to actively support communities who have historically been pushed aside. Not just assuming growth benefits everyone equally. Austin didn't apply this early enough. As growth pushed east, zoning limited new housing, prices rose, and longtime residents faced displacement. Today, the city is trying to respond with anti-displacement funding, community land trust, and affordability requirements, while also promising to reconnect neighborhoods during the I-35 reconstruction. But equity planning works best before markets heat up, not when displacement is already underway. East Austin isn't just a story about the past. It's a story about rebuilding infrastructure and not trying to repeat old mistakes. Austin at a crossroads. Austin is at a crossroads, a booming dynamic city wrestling with affordability, mobility, and sustainability. Its urban planning choices today will shape the city for generations. Urban planning isn't just about plans on paper. It's about people. Austin regularly solicits public input on projects like the ongoing 6th Street mobility redesign, where residents weigh in on pedestrian safety, bike lanes, and street life. Community engagement helps ensure planning reflects diverse needs, but rapid change also fuels debates over growth, equity, and the city's identity. It's trying to build transit after decades of car dependency, add housing after years of restriction, fix equity issues after growth has already arrived. That's hard, messy, and politically exhausting. Austin's future isn't about whether it grows, it's about who gets to stay. Austin is a case study in what happens when culture, growth, and planning collide. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like, subscribe, and tell us. Is Austin keeping it weird or zoning it out of existence? Thanks for watching Understanding Urbanism. I'm Jasmine. If you're curious about the urban planning stories in other cities, hit subscribe and see you next time.